Hi, I'm Jez, one of the co-founders of FunFair.
And I'm Jeremy, another one of them.
So we are here at the FunFair offices in central London. We recently moved here from Camden, and now we are next door to the BBC. So you can see behind us where they make some of the TV programs and news broadcasts. And we're going to talk about Jeremy's work on the next generation Fate channels.
Yeah, so I've recently published a paper, a long form explanation of what we've been working on over the last 2 years. When we started out using state channel technology 2 years ago, it was a very new sort of concept. You know, a few people had thought a little bit about how it might work, but there were no working functional implementations. And we started pretty much from scratch to try and work out how this would work and how you could put all the components together. Consequently, when we released our first version a year or so ago, it was still sort of a little bit confused about the way in which the code was structured. It did all work and everything, sort of held together for our first initial release, but I've spent the last few months looking at everything that we built and rebuilding it all from the ground up so that it's much more sustainable and much more modular and much more testable and much more readable, which is a really useful thing to turn our code base, to take our code base forward. We published it, so we've been a little bit secretive about how our stuff has worked when it came to code, but been really pleased that we've actually been able to publish the actual code so people can see how it works. And there's a fairly lengthy 10,000 word read explaining in detail pretty much how every line of the code works. So anyone who's interested in state channels, anyone who's interested in our tech and how it works, it's all out there now. We've pretty much revealed all of our dirty secrets for the inside core of our code.
Although you said we've been working on it 2 years, we actually released the prototype, the first demonstration of state channels with working games more than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've probably been working on it more than 2.5 years.
Absolutely. It's been interesting to see what some of the other teams working on state channels have been doing. And we're starting to see other companies now releasing things on mainnet or nearly on mainnet. And it's been interesting to see the community try to work how are we going to kind of cope with all of these different versions of state channels. And there's a beginnings of a forming of a standardization committee which we've been talking to, and very, very interested to see what comes out of that.
It's certainly the other groups of state channels have been gradually getting together. So
yeah.
First there was Connext and Counterfactual, and now Nitro and maybe Perun,
yeah.
and who knows, maybe Raiden. So yeah, it'll be good when more of these state channel groups that are all working
yeah.
on separate solutions, it'll be good when they all try and get some standards together
yeah.
and try and get support from wallets and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the challenges we faced is that the ecosystem around Ethereum, rather than Ethereum itself, is still very much in its infancy. People are still having to build a lot of supporting code. Separate conversation for today, but we've had to build our own wallet to be able to really let any customer use our applications on desktop and now on mobile. Very much looking forward to that. But standardization will help other wallets and other infrastructure providers, and also ancillary services like PISA, for example, which is a Watchtower Guardian network that helps make sure that the underlying sort of technology of state channels works.
Even when you're not there.
Even when you're not looking, yeah.
And that's actually a key point, because we've always believed that, at least in the short term, that we should have short-lived channels so that the player and the casino are available and are able to do a dispute if they have to, or a challenge, yeah. whatever they're going to call it these
yes.
days. Whereas some of the longer-lived channels do need a watchtower to watch over the player's funds when the player isn't there, or the user's funds.
Absolutely. A lot of these other layer 2 technologies talk about the dispute or timeout periods in terms of weeks, and that's a long time for individual users to be sat looking at their laptops, making sure that nothing's going wrong. So we think that there'll be a whole network of sort of ancillary technologies and code built around to support both state channels and indeed other layer 2 solutions. And so at least some level of standardization is definitely beneficial for those guys to be able to have something to code against. And so we are working particularly with Counterfactual and with Tom, Nitro and Magmo, those guys, to really kind of make sure that the fundamental core of what makes state channels tick is at least vaguely consistent across all of our individual implementations of it.
Certainly, there seems to be, there's been a lot of research from those various groups into where the standard's going, and we meanwhile have been focused on our product and
yeah.
actually shipping a commercial product that uses state channels. And so we've learned a lot being in the field and actually having real
yeah.
customers and actual disputes happen and resolving them on the chain and so on.
No, absolutely. And so we're kind of coming at this from two sides. I mean, the theoretical research community is a very, very valuable part of building this technology, but so is just simple hands-on practical experience. So hopefully we can bring the two together in a productive way and both learn something from that.
So what would you say are the differences with the new refactored fake channels that you've built versus the ones that are currently in use?
Well, I think the biggest difference is that a human being has a chance of being able to read the actual code, because the original stuff was very messy. But better than that, though, it achieves two things. It's very modular, which means that it's much simpler for people to be able to audit the code, to be able to look at it and understand how it works. But it's also much more extensible. So if we look at what FunFair is hoping to achieve, over the next sort of months and years, there are loads of things that we're hoping that we will be able to do. Multiplayer games, use of NFTs to provide all sorts of things along bonusing and customer retention stuff.
Shared bankroll.
A shared bankroll, potentially. We have some very good ideas about that now. Possible token conversions on the way in and the way out, being able to take other forms of payment. A lot of technologies and principles and ideas like that will be a lot easier, a lot more straightforward to do in the new refactored system. There's a nice clean place for them to all plug into. So there's a lot of empowerment that this enables.
I mean, there were lots of advantages and disadvantages in the first version not being published, but the main one was it wasn't that readable, and so now you've done one that is actually kind of straightforward. But also we had other advantages by not releasing it, because we didn't want people to steal our code when it was too early.
Well, I feel confident now that we've spent many man years building our own infrastructure, bespoke infrastructure on top of this, the actual application that makes FunFair tick. That is kind of still bespoke to us in terms of the actual games, the graphics, the interactivity, all of those things that took time and effort to build. So it's not like you could pick up this code.
So it's not like we'll have an instant competitor tomorrow using all the technology we spent years working on.
No, and that's not necessarily why we released the code either. We think we have taken a lot from this community, and we do need to give something back to it.
Oh, we do give a lot back all the time. We go to DevCons, we sponsor them, we give talks.
But here's some actual practical sort of research and development code that can be used. And as I said, I think I've tried to present it as the cleanest but most holistic, sort of complete implementation of state channels. There's everything from funding and unfunding through to state transitions, through to dispute resolution, through to example games. I cover all of the bases of the core bi-party, bi-directional channel.
So are we going to change the name disputes to something else now that someone else is calling it challenge or something?
Oh, we might do. It's not actually a word I particularly like. I have to be totally honest with you. It does describe something. It describes an event. Other people call it challenges. Tom Close calls it a force move, as in you're forcing the
Plasma calls them exit games.
There's all sorts of different words for that. I'm not ultimately, the code's.
It's all the same thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Someone would detect something out of protocol and then issues a challenge or a dispute, and then it's either proven or it's rejected with some other proof.
No, absolutely. Well, the resolution is the dispute, and the resolution is the most tricky and complicated part out of the system that we've built. And so I think it's probably important to note that there's a lot of other sort of research going on around and above and beyond what we're doing. So people are exploring sort of virtual channels and hub models and extensions of that to support longer term channels. And what we're doing is not at odds with that. It's just different. And if we found the reason in the future that we wanted to have longer lived channels, for example, for entire casino session duration, or much longer than that, then we're trying to build code that would work with that. There's no point in reinventing the wheel too many times. Just do it every now and again.
But we do some things that for our commercial application that other people haven't needed to do, or even haven't possibly considered yet. Like we do the random number generation built in. We have an economy where we actually pay the developer that built the game and the affiliate that marketed and found the player, and they all get a share of the revenue, and that's settled inside the channel, which is something that no one else has been thinking about. Yeah,
well, I mean, that comes from thinking about it with a real world hat on, and I think these things, it's helped us to have our own implementation of it so that we can put them in the right place, and then when I go to the state channels sort of unification committee and go, well, this is what we need, we can have a more sensible discussion about, well, where would that live in the larger state channel ecosystem? We put it here because that's where it works for us. But if you want to take that and generalize it so that other people can do similar things, then that's absolutely fine. But you need that sort of proven application of of the technology in order to try and drive it forward in the research community. So we're very much looking forward to those conversations over the next few months.
Very good. Well done on getting that document written and out.
And now on to implementing it and all of the new research.
Cool.